Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. We've got two brilliant questions coming up this week. We're so excited, can't wait to get into them. But before we get carried away, you know by now, we like to remind you how you can get your question onto the show. So let's give you that reminder.
Yes, the path to your answer looks like this. Just give us a call on 013 808 0035 or go to propertyhub.net/ask. That is where you leave us a voicemail. You re-record it if you get it wrong, no shame in that. And then once you're happy, you send it our way, and in due course, we answer it on the podcast, just like we're about to now.
Hello, Rob and Rob. My name's Paul from Bromley. I absolutely love your podcasts and your website and books. So thank you very much for all of that. My question is now a bad time to be buying off plan? I'm new to property investing, but I have already exchanged on 2 off plans in Manchester City Centre due to complete in Q2 2024, and I was thinking of doing another one. But I'm concerned that in a couple of years' time or whatever, when looking for a mortgage, rates may be much higher, and it may even be hard to get a buy-to-let mortgage at that time because of the higher interest rates and the difficulty of meeting the lending criteria. Be really grateful for your opinion on that, if one should put all off plans on hold given the uncertain interest rate environment. And thanks very much for your podcast and everything else you do.
Hey Paul, thank you for your question. And you know what? With so much nervousness in the world right now, I can understand why you're asking this. But if we look at the 18-year property cycle, and if you're a regular listener, hopefully you'll be familiar with that. If you're not, don't worry. The next question will guide you to where you can find more on that subject. But for the moment, let's assume that you are familiar with the 18-year property cycle. And the 18-year property cycle, for those who don't know, is a method that's helped lots of people, including ourselves, predict what's going to happen in the future with property prices. Now, it's not an exact science, and it doesn't mean it's always going to work, but so far, so good. We've been able to make some decent predictions against the crowd that have come true. Now, if we believe that cycle is going to continue, and the market will behave like we believe it will, then off-plan property is actually a fantastic thing to do right now, because the market is moving upwards at quite a strong rate. Year to date, most indexes will tell you we're at least 10% up year on year. Now, when you buy an off-plan property, you should only be buying with a 10% deposit, no more. We talk about that a lot on the podcast. There are many reasons why, protection being a big one, but second to that is you are leveraging at an incredible rate when you only put 10% down. In fact, owning an off-plan property in a rising market is possibly the most profitable time you'll ever have that property for. Sounds like a big claim. Let me briefly explain. Because you've only got 10% down, let's say your property was £200,000. You put £20,000 down. Yes, I know there's some costs, but let's keep it simple. 20 against 200. Now, if the market moves up by 10%, then your paper gain is from 200 to 220. Your property should hopefully be worth that now if it's performed like the rest of the market. So you've only put £20,000 down, but your property is now worth £20,000 more. So in effect, during that off-plan period, you've made 100% return on your money invested. Now, yes, you will put more down in the future, but you don't have to while it's being built. And every time the market pushes on, you are doing incredibly well because you're controlling that asset worth 200k with only 20 grand down. So it's an extreme form of leverage. It's an extreme form of controlling an asset worth a lot of money for not a lot of money down. Now, of course, to state the obvious, the same thing can happen if the market goes against you in reverse. But if we follow the cycle now, it's a great time to invest in off-plan. So my question goes back to you, Paul, is do you still feel confident in the cycle? If you don't know a lot about it, do more research. Go through our 18-year property cycle podcasts. Also check out our YouTube channel, search for Property Hub, subscribe to that. There's loads on the 18-year property cycle there and loads more to come. So make sure you're following us there as well and get yourself educated. And I do feel with education, it does help so many people because you feel more confident about the decisions you're making. When the noise of the media is so loud and constantly tries to scare us, then that's when people can make poor decisions. Remember, the world is a bit of a mad place at the moment, but it's been pretty mad for the last 10 years. And in fact, you could argue for thousands of years before that. It's very rare we have settled normal times. Humans are just crazy. So there'll always be unpredictability. There'll always be uncertainty. And our mainstream media is the last place you want to be taking advice from or even listening to when making any investment decisions. So get educated, make your own decisions, and I'm sure you'll do well.
Okay, that was Paul. Ed, over to you.
Hi, Rob and Rob. I'm incredibly new to property investing. I am in possession of a freehold property in London, and I'm looking to use that as a springboard to invest in buy-to-let properties. So, Rob D, I've already purchased your book, Property Investment for Beginners, which I'm looking forward to receive. But I just wondered, out of all the podcasts you guys have done from, I believe, 2017, what would kind of be your top 10 that you feel that would be beneficial for me to listen to as a starting point? Thanks, guys.
Ed, if you don't have the dedication to go back to our very first podcast in 2013 and listen to every episode in order, frankly, I do not see you succeeding in property. No, not really. I haven't listened to them all either. It's totally fine. I'm not going to give you a top 10 right now because there's actually a couple of resources that make this really easy for you. So the first one of those is episode 355, which is called, conveniently enough, New to the Property Podcast, Start Here. We did that back at the beginning of 2020. And in that, we link you back to what we consider real core episodes on topics like goals, fundamentals, what type of investor you are, your strategy, and so on. And the nice thing is we recorded that at the beginning of 2020 before anyone had heard of COVID. Happier times. So that will guide you towards the real core topics on the podcast. We've also got a page that we will link to in the show notes, which is propertyhub.net/podcast-welcome. That is where we curate a list that's always changing of what we think are our most relevant and topical episodes for people who are new to the show. So on there at the moment, we've got a link to our 2022 Hotspots episode. We're talking about inflation, because apparently that's a bit of a thing right now. And we're talking about what will happen if the market crashes. So that's a really great place to go to hear the most relevant episodes that we've recorded in the last year or so. And that's always kept up to date. So Ed, hopefully that'll save you a couple of 100 hours and maybe your sanity as well. And that should be useful for other people as well. So thank you for asking the question.
Thank you for listening. We'll reward you with a lovely podcast on Thursday, the main event, the property podcast. And of course, we'll be back, because we're pretty consistent, next Tuesday to answer your questions again. Until then, take care, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.